Joe Gerbo. Welcome.
Thank you, Cameron Bird. How you doing?
Good. Podcast number one.
Podcast number one, man. Let's get it started.
So for all the friends and family and anyone who's going to listen to this is the very first of podcasts, of my podcast, I guess. I don't know what it's called yet. We'll have a name by the time we publish. Do you have any name suggestions, Joe?
I think Bird-A.
Bird-A. Cam Bird-A.
Yeah, Cam Bird-A.
The Instagram name. I was actually thinking that last night when I was high out of my brain.
Yeah.
I had one of Ryan's joints last night and it got me.
Sorry. Put you on your ass.
I've been experimenting a little bit with the weed here, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it is just way too strong.
Yeah, I feel like Ryan brought up a good point earlier, but like you're from Australia, and I don't know what the weed is like out there, but here in America, it's like they've gotten science involved, you know. So they've made this like Frankenstein's monster of weed that just, I don't know if it's supposed to relax you, because whenever I smoke it, it does the exact opposite. It gives me pure anxiety. I think everybody hates me.
Yes.
And I'm like, what are you doing with your life? And then after about 20 minutes, everything's fine and everything's funny. And I'm like, oh, I should do this every single day.
Yeah. It's like this hill you have to climb. And that hill is like, boom, boom, mental just I don't know. It's just like disorientation. It's like that mental thing. Yeah, I get in my head. I'm like, oh my God, what did I just say? Like everything I say, I analyze.
Yep.
And it's just like, nah, this isn't good. But then it passes and it's good, but it's not all the time. Sometimes it's just mayhem.
So it's, if you can get past that first 20 minutes of just pure anxiety, and if you can learn, or if you can trick your brain into knowing that, oh yeah, this is going to pass, then I think it's like going, you're going up the roller coaster and you're going up and you're going up and you're like, holy shit, I'm getting higher and higher and higher and higher. When is this going to stop? And then you get to the top and everything just opens up and you start crashing down, and that's the good part of weed. But I think also what it is for me is that when I started smoking weed in high school, and I was always paranoid that my parents were going to catch me. Mm-hmm. And so I had that innate fear baked into it. And then when I got older, that fear didn't go away, but it went from, oh, are my parents going to catch me? Are my parents going to find out? To like, am I going to be okay? Is this, am I going to make it,
Man, I've had some terrifying moments on it. Like, and it's good because I think that's what you need. It kind of gives you what you don't realize you need. Mm-hmm. And the next day you kind of feel like, oh, that was all right. Like I kind of had to go through that. But it brings up all this crap. It just brings up like mental crap, which is just bullshit. Most of it is
all
just
of the
absolute
stuff you
bullshit.
Pack away.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it's just mental crap that you've, for some reason, thought of, which isn't even true. And then it just goes do-do-do, do-do-do, and you just get in this loop. I think
it's an endless playlist.
I was thinking of it the other night. It's kind of like, it must be like how a fish feels when it gets caught. It's like your mind's dropping little hooks, and sometimes it hooks you and sometimes you're like, nah, I'm not going to fall for this. But sometimes it hooks you and it drags you and you're like, ugh, and you're in that loop then. You're in that loop. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, that was just a mental loop.
Yeah. And then the fisherman catches you and then you're like, oh, fuck, I'm dead. And then he lets you go back in the ocean. You have this renewed sense of appreciation.
I'm alive.
Yeah, right. I'm like, fuck, that was scary, but woo, do I feel alive?
I was talking to a lady the other day at a mic, and she's a psychologist or psychotherapist. And I said to her, I was like, I have this paranoia when I smoke that like, that's going to be the last time. Like I'm just going to flip. Like, and I'm going to be one of those like crazy dudes on the street. And she's like, how old are you? I'm like, I said 35. And she's like, if it hasn't happened yet, it's not going to.
Yeah.
It's just, and I was like, are you sure? And she's like, no, I'm very sure. It's normally like, it's in the family. It run like those people that are already have issues of it's like.
Yeah. Well, also if weed is the thing that brings out your schizophrenia, that means that you had either a really, really strong strain, or you have a very weak mind, because you should not be getting any mental diseases from just smoking weed.
No,
now,
I agree.
If you do a shitload of acid, that might break you. Because I remember when I was a kid, going through that. Did you have DARE in Australia? It was like this anti-drug thing.
No.
Okay, so
It's an American thing.
it's an American thing. So in America, like during the 80s, there was this war on drugs, and it was the Reagans, Nancy and Ronald Reagan, and they were just very anti-drug, even though a lot of people speculate that they brought crack to the hood, basically.
I've heard
but
that.
so they were that administration was super anti-drug. They did this whole PR stunt where they were like, just say no to drugs, right? And then that gave birth to DARE, which was this program that went into schools across America, and they would bring in cops, they would bring in ex-drug addicts, and they would talk to kids about the dangers of getting involved in drugs. And one of the things was weed is a gateway drug. So that was the first one that they told you just say no to, because when you're in high school, that's the first thing that everybody starts getting into. Like, if you want to be cool, you got to smoke weed in high school. And then from there, they tell you that, okay, so weed is bad, but it's only bad because it leads to other worse drugs. And they bring up, heroin and cocaine, and then they're like an acid. And I remember they were telling us, I was in like 6th or 7th grade, and whoever was giving the presentation, maybe it was a cop, he was telling us how people in the 60s would experiment with drugs, especially acid, and how it would just destroy a person's brain to where they would take a bunch of acid, and then for the rest of their lives, they would have hallucinations, and they would lose their mind just kind of instantaneously. And that freaks you out when you're in 6th or 7th grade. But then you get into high school and you smoke weed for the first time. And you're like, okay, this is pretty cool. And then as you get older, you start, getting into the more fun stuff, cocaine, acid, shrooms. And you start to realize that, oh, there's nothing wrong with these at all. It's just, you can't do them every day. So
I look at it as like training, like it's mental training.
yeah,
Because it brings everything to the forefront and you have to let it go. You just have to. And I feel like that's a good reflection on life, because I think where most mental illnesses come from, this is my theory, is it's just listening to your mind.
yeah,
And we're not our mind. Everyone thinks, people don't sort of understand that, a lot of people, but we're not our mind. We're not our thoughts. Our thoughts are just a part of us.
yeah.
It's just we're not that. We are the observer of the thoughts. So it's, for me, I use it as like mental. I'm like, all right, this is good. I'm like, I have to like disassociate from that, and it's practice. It gives me practice and clarity in the real world, because whenever I get a negative thought, I'm like, all right, this is just a thought. But
Yeah.
the weed is like training in the gym.
To let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can let it go there, then you can let it go in real life.
100%. I think you have to also remind yourself that when you are having a bad trip or you're having a bad experience, remind yourself that, oh, I just smoked weed. That's why.
Yeah.
Or I don't know have you ever done Molly?
I have.
MDMA?
Not for a
Okay.
very long time.
So did you ever rave or like go to, okay.
Yeah.
So
it was a young man's drug for me.
of course. Raving is it's a young person's game. And I think everybody goes through a phase when they're in like their early 20s. And when I was in my early 20s, I was doing a lot of Molly. I was going to a lot of EDM shows. And really the only way that you can go to all those shows is if you're high on Molly or if you're doing something. Because if you go there sober, you're like, this sucks, dude. It's 4 hours of just But I remember I had a friend he was like 8 or 9 years older than me. And he told me once, because we were talking about how people can't handle their drugs. And he told me, he's like, yeah, it's crazy. Like, I remember one time I was freaking the fuck out after taking a point of Molly. And somebody told me, he's like, oh, yeah. That's because you just took Molly. Like that was the thing. That was the kind of come to God or clarity that he needed at the time. It's like, just remember that you just took drugs. So if you start freaking out, just remember, oh yeah, I'm high. It'll go away.
Have you had a freak out from Molly before?
Not from Molly. I think the one time that I had not a bad trip or anything, but one time I took acid and I was at my buddy's house and there was like 3 or 4 of us that took acid. And then after about 8 hours, we started to come down. So we took it at 8 and then it must have been 4 in the morning. And then I smoked a little bit of weed and it just kick-started it all over again. And I went, oh, I'm never going to be normal again. Because I went from, having the trip and then starting to come down and starting to feel a little bit normal to smoking weed. And then the colors came back, all the geometrical shapes and everything when you close your eyes. That was the one time. And that's when I figured out that, okay, if you want to keep the high going, smoke a little bit of weed. If you want it to dissipate, you just got to ride it out and then be chill.
Yeah, I haven't done any Molly for a very long time. I can't stand to come down.
It's brutal.
It's too fierce for me. I don't think I've touched it since I was 22 or something.
Yeah.
It's way too brutal.
Yeah, you can't be doing that to your head when you're.
It sucks all the daylight out of your mind.
Yes.
You just end up feeling like you're a zombie for a few days. I don't know how people do it. I really don't.
Because it's fun.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So, Joe, you had your second show on Tuesday.
Yes.
That was awesome. Thank you for making me a part of it.
Of course. Thank you for being on the lineup. Everybody on the lineup was a fucking killer.
Second sold out show too.
Second sold out show. It was a tight room. The audience was hot. I mean, I felt like we could have gone up there and said anything and it would have landed.
It was a very generous room.
It was, and a lot of them were
generous
friends.
for laughs. Yeah,
generous for laughs. Everybody wanted to have a good time. Yeah. Everybody wanted us to succeed, but every comic brought it. Exactly. Every comic delivered. So you can have a hot room, and some people just shit the bed. Every single comic on the lineup brought it. The notes we'll have to work on that in the future. But yeah, I thought that every comic was so fucking good when they were up there.
Oh man, it was hot. When I got off stage, I was like
vibrating,
adrenaline. And I think I said to you or Harrison, I was like, that's how it should be.
Yep.
It was just like that's what we do it for.
Yep.
It's the best feeling. Mm-hmm. It is the best feeling. You overcome the nerves, you get up there, it all goes away, you're just in the zone.
Yep.
And then afterwards you walk off and it all just goes.
Yeah.
Just relax.
Yes.
You just feel very accomplished and like, yeah, I fucking did it.
You get that, that the pre-show jitters and you're a little bit anxious, but you're excited. And then you get up on stage and, for a split second, you forget everything that you were about to say. And your mind is just like, holy shit, there's a lot of people here. They're all staring at me. I'm supposed to say something funny. And then you get into it and you get into your rhythm, and then after you come off stage and you've killed it, that high, it courses through your entire body, and then you kind of start to come down a little bit, and then you just feel like the fucking man.
Yeah.
Because you just did something very cool and impressive.
There's no better feeling. And it's funny because the shows seem to rejuvenate your material too. Like, when we do these mics every single day and we do the same material, it kind of gets really repetitive. Mm-hmm. That's why we're always trying to write and do new stuff. But with shows, you kind of go to your old tried and true, and then at that moment, none of that old material feels old. When you say it at a show and you get all
it feels
the fresh
fresh.
laughs. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you're almost like I got to remember that one.
Yeah,
and it's like you've been saying that for the last 6 months. But because we say it in front of the same people at these open mics, they start to become stale. But you have to realize that if you want to be a professional, you have to have those calling card jokes. You have to have the material that like the back of your hand, because those become the things that put you on a billboard or, put you on a marquee. Those are the things that get you onto a legit lineup. Mm-hmm. And so if I don't know how much you write. I don't know how much, the next guy writes. I have, like 3 or 4 notebooks of jokes. And if I'm doing a 5-minute open mic, I'll maybe tell 2 or 3 of those. Mm-hmm. And then if I'm doing a 10-minute show, it's like I will do 5 or 6 and, leave some room in there to kind of interact with the crowd. But you have to write so much because 90% of it is shit.
I reckon for me, it's like 97% of it.
Yeah.
I can write for 2 weeks and not come up with one new bit
Right.
that I want to say on stage, or I have the fear. I'm like, so I'm starting to write a lot more personal stuff, and trying to overcome that milestone. But I'll write it and I'll just sit on it for 2 weeks before I even have the balls to say it.
Yes.
Do you find that?
I do. I find that if I write a joke, unless I'm really, really confident and if when I'm writing it, it made me laugh, I'm like, okay, I have to tell it tonight. Usually what happens is I'll write a joke and then I'll be like, it's not there yet. And I sit on it for a little bit and then I'll tell it once or twice at an open mic and I'll forget about it. And then 6 months later, I revisit it and then I punch it up a little bit. And like the set I did the other night for the show was all of it. I think I wrote at least within the last year and maybe even before that, like I have a wrestling bit that I've had for probably since the beginning of the year.
I love that bit.
Thank you. And it's one of my favorite bits too, because I think that the jokes all make sense. But sometimes when I bring it to an open mic, people either A, don't really like wrestling, or B, I'm making the joke that in the first part of it, I'm making the joke that professional wrestling is cool. The fake stuff, mat wrestling, which is like the stuff you see in the Olympics, that's a little gay because it's two men, grabbing each other and sweating all over each other and stuff.
It's a little gay.
Exactly. It is. But I think that even that is now starting to get tacky, saying things are gay or, it's just sort of like a fail safe.
It's a common, it's not unique.
You see it all the time.
Yeah.
You see it all the time. I think we have, honestly, Shane Gillis to thank for that, because he does a bit about Donald Trump calling his opponent gay and just talking shit. And it's just like, he does it so well. And when you see a comic like Shane Gillis make a joke, and, we're all comics and we all have parallel thinking. So we all kind of think the same. It's just how we deliver. But when you see a guy that's as good as Shane Gillis deliver a joke, it's almost like, okay, nobody can touch that topic anymore because he did it and he did it the best. So it forces us to write more, but it also, sometimes you want to try your hand at stuff. Like everybody's going to have a take on the election. Everybody's going to have a take on like Tony Hinchcliffe bombing at Madison Square Garden.
That was brutal.
Right. But everybody has an opinion, and everybody thinks their opinion is right or thinks their opinion is funny. So unless you're willing to say that opinion or say that joke multiple times in front of different audiences and try it out and flesh it out, if you're not willing to do that, if you're not willing to bomb with certain material, then you're going to lose that material, or it's going to lose steam, and then it just becomes fodder in your notebook.
I have been going up a lot with just premises. Like I sometimes think, I won't try and flesh too much of an idea out. I'll just go with the premise and have a little bit of a riff on stage. But I find if I haven't got a few punchlines actually sorted out, or a way to close the loop of that joke, even if I go up and try and flesh it out on stage, I might get something, but usually I really have to think about it before I go up. I kind of have to have it set out.
Yes. I think I
haven't had any miracles on stage yet.
Any happy accidents. And
maybe a few.
Right,
but
right. Yeah. It's like the guys that invented Coca-Cola, they always say that Coca-Cola was a mistake. So it's those happy mistakes where, you just go up there with an idea and then you find something funny through that. I cannot go up without a roadmap. I can't go up without a plan.
I mean, the guys that invented Coca-Cola, they were selling it it used to have cocaine in it.
Used to have cocaine.
So, I mean, yeah, you could say that's a mistake.
The good old days.
That's a pretty easy mistake to get people.
To get people hooked.
Oh, it's a mistake. Oh,
why is it cocaine in it? Good? It smells amazing.
I emptied a bag in there. I'm not too sure.
Oh man, my uncle has the best Coca-Cola, dude. He has the best Coca-Cola, and I don't know what he puts into it, but it's so good.
It's kind of like the Reese's like old commercial where it's like, you got the peanut butter in my chocolate, you got the chocolate in my peanut butter. Like, people go on stage and they think like that's what's going to happen.
But sometimes it does. Sometimes you make a happy mistake and it becomes your calling card, or just becomes like. But that's the experimentation of this, like this. People call comedy an art form, and I believe it is, but I think that if you're a comic that calls it art or calls what you do art, you're taking it a little too seriously. Mm-hmm. But the art form in it is the experimentation. It's the, it's the having the balls to go up there with nothing, or to go up there with just something and then create something that might be good.
It's such a big milestone to overcome. Like, I've got a friend who's getting into comedy. He's starting next year. He's doing a course and he's going to get into it. But he's going, well, what if I do this on stage, and what if I be this? And I don't know what sort of persona to put on. And I'm like, mate, you're not going to have any of that figured out. You're going to suck. You just have to know that you're going to suck.
Yes.
For ages.
Yes.
And even if you have a good set, it's going to be followed by a shit set.
Yes.
Another shit set.
100%.
It's constantly bombing.
You have to be okay with eating shit. You have to be okay with failing. Mm-hmm. Don't be, I'm terrified of failing, but I'm more terrified of not trying it.
Me too. I've always been that person. Like, even when I was single, I'd always be the guy that would go and approach a girl, because for me, the thought of not doing that was way worse than the thought of doing that and getting rejected.
Yeah.
So
yeah. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Exactly. Yeah. So how did you get into comedy?
I got into comedy. I moved to New York to do comedy. I think that it first kind of came up on my radar when I was in middle school. I watched Daniel Tosh's first special on Comedy Central. I forget what it's called, but I just remember being like, damn, that's a really cool thing that you can do, and I bet anybody can do it. And so and I just, I always was watching Comedy Central, and I always, like, my favorite celebrities were always comics, or always funny people. I didn't give a shit about Matt Damon or Brad Pitt or anything. I liked Will Ferrell, I liked John C. Reilly, I liked Dave Chappelle. And then as I got a little bit older and I heard about open mics and stuff, it became a possibility. And so then when I was deciding, I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, and I wanted to leave pretty much right after high school, but I went to the U of A, which is the university in Tucson, and dropped out after my first year.
What were you studying?
I was studying business. Yes.
It's such a weird, broad thing.
Exactly.
Like, what do you even do? What do you study?
You make business.
Okay.
You make business.
So
I don't know.
Do you do a hypothetical business and they show you how to set everything up? And
The first year of business school is they weed you out. So because a lot of business, because it's so broad, a ton of people get into it. It's almost like a ton of people come out here and they do comedy, they do music or whatever. It's like, the ones that want to do it, or the ones that have the acumen to do it, will find a way to get through that rough period, that first year where they're just giving you, like, I remember business school was all just spreadsheets and making mock projects and stuff, all this like tedious work that I was not prepared to do. And I had no interest in it. And also, I want this to be a message to anybody that listens to this that is maybe not in college or is about to go to college, like anybody that's in high school or anything. Like, if you don't know what you're going to do, go into university undecided. You can pick that as your major for the first 2 years, and all you do is like general ed. So you do just the basic like math, science, whatever that the college requires of you to get your degree. And then after those first 2 years, then you can decide what you want to focus on.
Well, listen, it doesn't make any sense when you're 17 or 18 and
to know what you want to do.
How the hell can you?
No,
I mean, I didn't. I'm an electrician and I did an apprenticeship, but I didn't even know I wanted to do that. My mum basically told me to do it.
Yeah,
she's like, you don't have anything else going on. I booked you into a pre-voc, which is like a course, like a
Pre-vocational?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I did that, and then I got an apprenticeship out of it. And I'm glad I did, but you can't know what you're going to do
Fuck no.
at 17, 18. There's no way.
Which is crazy that they expect you to decide when you're 17 or 18.
And then you're lobbed with 4 years of university.
Mm-hmm.
I met a girl at home, and she studied architecture here, and she had like a $250,000 college debt.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Mm-hmm.
You start your life, your working life, your professional life with that much debt. I mean, you could buy a house with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the idea is that, okay, you go to school so you can get a good job. And then once you have a good job, then you get to pay back all of the money that it took to go to school. So that way, by the time you're 30 or 32, you have no money to your name. And then you have to put a down payment on a house, and then you have to pay a mortgage for the rest of your life. And then you have credit card bills. It's like, basically, to be an adult is just to be in constant debt, to be drowning in it.
It kind of feels like a kind of version of modern slavery.
Little bit, yeah.
Without, obviously that's a pretty
Without all the benefits.
Jagged word. Yeah, without the free shit. Without the free meal at the end of the day.
Yeah, right. The free housing and all that, yeah.
The free cornbread and the
oh, Jesus.
No, it's a hard thing to get your head around. I've struggled with it. I've always been the grass is greener kind of guy.
Yeah.
When I've been in a situation.
You're very cheery.
When I've been in a typical life situation, I've always tried to get out of that situation. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next job? What's the next project? How can I make this money? How can I do that? But you never really, or I found I was never really happy. Yeah. I had moments of happiness, but I knew that I wasn't pursuing something that I felt super drawn to, or something that I could say, I want to do this for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm. Give you a purpose.
Because it's amazing when you see people that are doing something they love and they go, I fucking love my job.
Yeah.
I love my job. And
there's a twinkle in their eye. Yeah.
I mean, those people are so few and far between. Mm-hmm. And even the people that you meet that are making a shitload of money in the corporate world, they're fucking miserable.
Yeah.
They're absolutely miserable. So it's a funny trade-off, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, the metaphor is, you're another cog in the machine. You're just a part of this entity that is bigger than you, and all you are is just one little speck in it, and you have no purpose other than to keep that going. So you have no independence. You have no real drive to do anything for yourself, because all you're doing is you're feeding yourself and your family. And that's it. And that can become a purpose too. Like there is no shame in, working a 9 to 5 or doing any job that, if you don't love your job, there's no shame in showing up every day because you have a responsibility to do that, or you have a family to take care of.
Of course.
Absolutely not. But there is greater value in pursuing something that means something to you. It doesn't have to bring you fame or riches or anything. You just be like, every single day you wake up and you're like, I'm doing something that I think fucking matters.
So why did you drop out of uni after a year?
I dropped out because they told me I could no longer go there.
The decision was made for you.
Yes. Okay. Do you know how GPAs work?
We have the similar thing at home.
Okay. So it's your grade point average, and I don't know how they come up with the number, but basically a 3.0 is a good GPA. A 2.5 is satisfactory. A 2.0 is like, maybe you'll graduate. Anything below a 2 is bad. Like, you're failing multiple classes, you're getting D's, you're not passing any classes. So take that in mind when I say this. I had a 0.6 GPA my first semester at the University of Arizona.
So you did not want to be there.
I didn't go. I didn't go to any of my classes.
You didn't want to be there.
Yeah, I didn't want to. I wasn't ready. At 18, I was not ready to. I wasn't ready to live on my own and to be around people my age and have the freedom to do whatever. Drink every night, smoke weed every day, like, that's all I really wanted to do. And then when it came to my responsibilities, going to classes, waking up at 8 a.m. and all that, I was like, fuck that. I don't want to do this. So I got a 0.6 my first semester. And then I got a little email from the university saying, you're on academic probation. So if you don't bring your GPA up, and I didn't have to bring it up by a lot, but they're like, if you don't bring your GPA up over this next semester, you're going to be kicked out of university. And so I looked at that and I said, fuck, I better get my shit together. And then my second semester, I got a 0.4 GPA. So I did worse.
Wow.
Yeah, because I think what happened was for the first 2 weeks, I was like, dude, you better fucking get it together. Like, you're going to flunk out. And then after about 2 weeks, I was like, no, you're flunking out. Just accept it, live with it, enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
So
enjoy the partying.
Exactly. And even then, the parties weren't, it wasn't like I was partying a lot, because at a lot of American universities, Greek life is a thing. So like fraternities and sororities. And if you go to a major university, if you're not in a frat, or if you're not in a sorority, you'll get by, because like, if you're a chick, you can get into most parties. Like, the guys want you there. But if you're not in a frat, you're not going to any of the cool parties. You're not doing any of the fun shit. So I was just hanging out with burnouts, basically.
Is it because the dudes in frats don't want more dudes to compete with women?
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Yes.
And I wouldn't want you there either.
Right, exactly.
Another good-looking boy that's going to take my girls from me.
And and I'm a piece of shit, and I'm funny, and I got a huge cock, and so it's like, why do we want this guy?
That's a red flag.
He doesn't even bring booze to the party. He doesn't pay any of the dues. So I talk about it on stage too, where there's nobody that protects an entrance or a border or anything better than frat guys protecting their house during a party. Because what they do is they put the freshmen at the door, and they basically run like security.
Really?
And their job is to just bring in all the girls, and then any of the guys that they don't know, they're like, who do you know here? Who the fuck are you? And I've tried to sneak into frat parties. I've gotten jumped trying to sneak into frat parties.
Wow.
Yeah, so if you're not in a frat, that's the other thing. If you go to college, go into a frat, because you won't have fun if you don't.
So what did you do after you dropped out?
I went to community college for about 3 years, and then I worked in bars and restaurants that whole time. I was just dicking around for the first 24 years of my life. I had no direction. I had no drive.
Wow.
I had, no discipline. I still don't have discipline. I have a little bit of drive, but
I think you've got discipline and drive. I've seen you. You're showing up every day for comedy. That's discipline and drive, my friend.
it's a lot easier when your friends are there. It's a lot easier to go to an open mic when you know you're going to see your friends, or when your friends are holding you accountable. Because for the first year I was doing comedy, I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I thought that everybody sucked. I thought that everybody was judging me. Like, I had a huge chip on my shoulder. And it really wasn't until this summer when I met you guys, you, Harrison, Eli, Ryan, like once I started meeting people that I genuinely liked, and they genuinely liked me, then I became more comfortable, and the doors started to open up a little bit.
It's having the friends which has made me work harder, because you guys are around me all the time. You're seeing my sets, and I always think to myself, these boys have heard all this. I've got to come up with something new. I've got to get to the stand on Saturday and impress these guys.
Because you want to, exactly. You want to impress your friends. Because you don't want your friend. Because at some point you don't want your friends to be like, "Dude, we love you, man, but you fucking suck."
Write something.
Stop doing comedy. Maybe this just isn't for you.
Oh my God.
Be funny.
Right.
Be funny.
Can you be funny when you're up there? Like, you're funny around us. Just do that.
Can you please make me laugh? I'm waiting. I am waiting.
I want to see you succeed, but you suck right now.
Oh, it's so brutal. What's the worst bomb you've felt?
I want to hear your worst bomb, because I have a pretty bad bomb.
Okay.
But as somebody who, so you're 35, right? You're not from here.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only imagine what it's like being in New York City. So tell me first of all, tell me when, like, your worst bomb, and tell me, were the first 3 months as miserable for you as they were for me?
They were awful.
Okay.
That was so bad. It took me a little while just to get the courage to go up.
Mm-hmm.
And the fear that I felt when I first got here to get up was so intense.
Yes.
Like I was shaking and sitting there waiting for my turn to go up, and all the butterflies, all those heavy feelings. And that took ages to sort through. That took months.
Mm-hmm.
The worst bombs I've had are on open mics, and certainly were when I first started. But I did bomb at a show.
Yeah.
I did a show.
That hurts.
That really hurt. I did a 5-minute storytelling show
At Gotham?
with the Cellar.
At the
It
Cellar.
was a course that I did. It was a course with DC Benny, and he's fantastic. But I got a good 5-minute story, which is great. But on the show, and this has happened to me a couple of times, when the crowd has laughed,
Mm-hmm.
instead of me holding my composure and staying in the bit, I laughed with the audience.
Yeah.
And on this particular night, I did that, and then I just completely blanked and lost where I was at.
Right.
And I stood there for about 15 seconds
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
in complete silence.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to pull out my notes. I was just like, yeah. And then I had a nervous laugh. I was like,
Yeah, and then it gets weird for the audience.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, he has no idea what he's doing.
It was brutal.
Yeah.
That I really felt.
Yeah, those ones hurt because it's like you're shitting on the opportunity you were given.
Yeah.
But it's not. But you didn't do it on purpose.
No. But
It just happens.
It always hurts. I've overcome that now, but yeah, blanking, and I feel like is the word. Blanking is worse than just telling a shit joke.
Yes,
and
100%. Yeah.
not getting the laugh.
Yeah, because you're a fucking deer in headlights.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you feel like you got caught with your pants down around your ankles. You're just like, I'm exposed.
Yeah. I think the best thing I could have done to overcome that was going up on mics and not looking at my notes all the time.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
You got to practice how you play.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So that, yeah, other than that, I always think it always hurts at the time, but then looking back, it's never as bad as what you think it's going to be.
No, and the real confidence to go up there on stage comes from knowing that even if this goes badly, I'll be all right, and I'm not gonna quit just because I had one bad set or I had one bad mic.
But the quality here, because I did a little bit of comedy back at home, not a lot, but it was enough to sort of get a taste for it and know that I want to do it. But then coming here and seeing all the boys on the mics and the girls, it's a different level here. Everyone here is so talented.
Yes.
I had a friend from Australia. She came here and I took her to a few mics, and she said, she's like, wow, the level here is on another level. She's like, people here are actually writing proper jokes, punchline jokes.
Yeah.
Whereas at home, there's people that do that. They're fantastic, but there's also a lot of like more longer form rambling, I would say, like more longer form storytelling seems to be a lot more common. Whereas in New York, it's very like premise, setup, punchline.
Tight.
It's just tight, keeping it tight. That's like the New York.
Yes.
You kind of learn how to do it properly here.
Yeah, I've heard that, of all of the hubs of comedy, that in New York, it's supposed to be tight and polished.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of it, the reason that there's a higher level or a higher expectation is because so many people move here to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So many people move to New York to pursue comedy. And once you get into it, you realize that, there's levels to this shit, and you start way at the bottom. Even if you're a funny and talented person, you almost always start directly at the bottom, and you're going to suck for a while because you're going into a space where there are people that have been doing it for years. There are people that do it and take it very seriously. Then there are people that have been doing it that take themselves very seriously, and they hold themselves to, a quote unquote higher standard. So then they kind of hold you to that. And if you don't even meet them a little bit, they instantly turn off. They instantly don't give a shit who you are. They don't want to talk to you outside. They're not going to laugh at a single one of your jokes. So that's I think the initial hurdle, and that's the weeding out process.
Yeah.
Of, are you okay with bombing for a year or 2 years or 3 years? in order to eventually get to a place that is acceptable.
It's such a strange art form, isn't it? If you can, it is an art form.
It is an art form.
It's so strange where the only way to get good is just actually sucking.
To eat shit.
Actually eating shit. Like imagine if you're like a BMX biker, whatever, BMX rider. And the only way to get good at BMXing was to crash your crash your BMX bike every time you did a race.
And crash in front of people. Crash in front of complete strangers that are doing like 180s and 360s in the air, and they're just like, this guy fucking sucks. He's gonna break his neck.
No, I crashed now, so next time I'm gonna do a 360.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And that's what you're working your way up to. But all these guys are doing 360s in the air, and they're turning the handlebars and whatever, and you're doing like little bunny hops, and you're like, I'm making it. I'm making it. I'm getting better.
Look at me, boys.
Right. No, so the worst, I've had 2 really, really bad bombs. Obviously, we all bomb. It's a regular thing. It just happens. You can't always make people laugh. Sometimes they don't get you, whatever. Sometimes you're just not feeling it. But I've had 2 that stand out in my mind. The first one was last year, so 2023. And I was maybe like 4 or 5 months into doing comedy, and I was only doing 1 mic a week. So I wasn't really refining anything. I was just going up there kind of to almost like a form of exposure therapy. I was just trying to do it consistently enough that it was becoming a part of my life. But I wasn't gaining any traction. So I went to the stand. There were 2 really attractive female comics there, and they were both really good. And I was sitting next to them in the audience, and they both went up before me and did very well. And then I went up right after them and wasn't doing great. I think I told a joke, and then I said, "Oh man, I'm bombing in front of the hot girls." And one of the girls went, "Ew." And I remember she had a bit about somebody sticking their fingers in her mouth, and I was like, "Oh, is that what you said when that person stuck their fingers in your mouth?" And she goes, "Do your fucking material." Oh. And then I went, "Oh wow, guys, she's a bitch." And then the whole room went, "Nope." No, we didn't like that. And then I had to sit in there. And in my head, I remember doing this like these gymnastics where I was like, "Oh, you could leave right now. You could." And I said into the mic, I was like, "Well, I'm still going to finish my 5. Like I'd paid." And so I worked through it. The whole room hated me. People were kind of talking to me during my set. I got through it, but that was really bad. And then the second time that I bombed horrendously was at my second ever show. So you bombed on a show, I've bombed on a show. And I did exactly what you did. I forgot everything about a minute into my set. And I remember I was freaking out, and I had brought notes on stage, and I asked the crowd, I was like, "Do you guys mind if I use my notes?" And I had built in a joke about using my notes on stage for this exact reason. And before I could like get to the punchline, this lady just yelled out, "Please." Like she was just like, they were begging me to use my notes on stage. And it was, yeah.
That hurts for days.
That hurt really bad. That hurt really, really bad. Yeah. Still not over it.
When I started doing shows, the first few shows I did, I was so incredibly nervous. It was disgusting.
Yeah.
My whole body was tight. I was trying to run my set over in my head just before I went up, and I couldn't even think. I was so nervous and so anxious. And then I did the set and I did okay. People said I sort of seemed like I was rushing through it.
Yeah.
Which is fair, because when I was up there, all I wanted to do was get the fuck off there.
Yeah.
As soon as I got on there, I was like,
you're on flight mode.
Get me out of here. Get through this, rip through this quickly, get me off. And then even for 2 days after, I was still so tight, still wound up. I didn't get any of that good feeling after. I was like,
no release.
Nothing. Just shame internal shame.
Yeah. God, I want to kill myself.
It's so brutal, man.
It's tough. You know, when you go on stage and you feel the tightness in your knees.
Have you ever had it so till they're shaking?
No, so my hands will occasionally shake. It doesn't happen as much anymore because I'm starting to like, I try to move through it. That I feel like that will loosen me up if I actually move with what I'm saying. But there have been times where, like, you know, I'm putting out my hand to, like, I'm making a joke about shaking somebody's hand and my hand is like vibrating violently. And right then and there, it's like, well, everybody just saw that, so they know, you know, you're supposed to fake it till you make it. I tried the 2 hands on the mic thing. I don't like that. I try to put my hand behind my back. I don't like that. Every time I watch footage of me and I make a joke and it lands, I always look up and I'm like, I can't believe I can't believe that worked. You know, it's like, I have these weird little nervous tics.
Yeah.
But they start to dissipate and they start to go away the more you do it. But that feeling of being nervous before you go on stage, or even just that feeling of being nervous on stage, that doesn't go away.
No. It does get easier though. In the short time.
You can deal with it.
Yeah. I've noticed a change in me. It's getting a lot more manageable.
Yeah.
I can sit in it now and I'm okay, which is a really nice change because you start questioning whether or not you should even be doing it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, if I'm not even enjoying this, why am I doing it? And so that's a nice milestone to overcome. So yeah, where did you grow up?
Grew up in Tucson, Arizona. So
is that a red state or a blue state?
Arizona's pretty red when I was growing up. I think
now they're probably red. Seems like nearly most of America is red now.
No, they're well, maybe this year, yeah. It's that red wave came in hot.
Oh man, it's funny seeing prior to the election, all the statistics coming out, and they were saying that Camilla was going to win.
Yeah,
everyone thought that she was going to win by a landslide.
Yes,
and it's so funny because watching the media is pretty much all bought and paid for by.
It seems that way.
By the
like the
liberal party.
only you can't go on public access television, or you can't go on you just can't go on TV and then shit all over a Democrat or a Democratic president, because that's like, it's okay if you go on the late night show with Colbert and Jon Stewart and, you know, all of those like farce news shows the satires, a lot of it is just poking fun at Republicans, which, you know, sometimes they do it to themselves, whatever, but you can't really, you don't really get the other side of that. You know, the only thing that you get on TV that is like very red or very conservative is Fox News. And Fox News, you know, that's the easiest thing to make fun of, or that's the easiest thing to poke holes in, because they're so to the right. They're, you know, and
the problem is it's all extremes.
It's all extremes, but one is generally more accepted than the other.
It doesn't seem like there's a neutral news channel so much.
No.
The independent news channels that you can watch on YouTube, like Breaking Points, they're pretty neutral.
It used to be in like the 60s and 70s that news anchors would just report the news. They wouldn't give their 2 cents on or their opinions on it. Like now if you watch Fox News and they talk about Kamala Harris, you know, they're like, Kamala Harris said that she's going to, you know, she's going to give taxes back to the middle class. She's a fucking liar. And then if you watch CNN, it's like, Donald Trump said something shitty today. Well, no fucking kidding, because he's a piece of shit, and you can tell the undertones.
Yes,
it doesn't matter which network you watch. You can always feel the undertone of what they're really trying to say.
The funniest thing that I saw was post-election results, the TikTok videos that were getting viral of like the people crying on TikTok.
Yeah.
And you've got to think about what a fucking bunch of morons to do that. I mean, you have to fake cry or real cry, whatever. It's all, to me, it looks all fake, and they've got to hold their phone, get on TikTok, record.
Right, right.
I mean, you have
It's
to be
their
the
reaction.
biggest fucking loser. Get a grip, man.
Right.
It's crazy. There were people on Long Island that were shooting off fireworks at 2:00 in the morning during the election. I'm like, all right, I get you're happy. Nobody fucking cares. It's
Right.
2:00 in the morning.
Right.
Like you're an asshole. I don't care that you're happy. It's
Because
2 a.m.
those are also the people that were lighting fireworks off at 2:00 in the morning. The same people that are like, turn that damn music down.
Exactly. It's different when it's you.
Yes.
It's always different when it's your side.
Yeah,
Like,
well, it's the idea of, God, what is it? It's not practice what you preach. It's do as I say, not as I do. Yes. There's a lot of that going on these days.
What you were saying before with the satire in the news and stuff, I saw Jon Stewart around this time last year do stand-up. It was him and John Mulaney. And Stewart was actually the headliner, which was crazy. And he roasted Biden just as much as he roasted Trump.
That's awesome.
And that was great because you could tell that he's like, no, I have problems with both sides. Like everyone sees me as liberal, but I have problems with both sides. And his whole stance with the Democrats is that they just won't do anything and they just blame everybody else.
Right.
And then the Republicans just boast about everything, even if it's wrong. And there was a woman in front of me who was a Trump supporter, and every time he said anything bad about Trump, she got so upset.
Right.
And I'm like, see, this is the problem because it's either side. He's being pretty even, but you're just getting mad at what he's saying against what you believe.
You feel like he's personally attacking you, and it's like I don't get why people feel like they're the ones that lost the race.
Exactly.
Like when you see people on TikTok and they're like, why do you hate me? Why do you hate me? It's like, they don't care about you. Nobody cares about you. There's this new wave of politics in the country and the way that people digest or the way that people align themselves with a certain party. And it used to be that this party represents more of what I believe, and then nowadays it's like this party represents what is true. And therefore, if you are against it, you are against the truth.
And against democracy. Oh, man, that one pisses me off. It's like all the libs saying, oh, you're against democracy. I'm like, you're bought and paid for.
Sure.
Like there's nothing democratic about what you represent in my mind. That's just my opinion, guys, but it's really obvious. Anyways,
the two-party system.
Yeah.
It's the problems of having only two choices and being like, well, one of them has to be right. And I'm always like, well, maybe both are partially right and both are partially wrong.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, and you can't you'll never get an independent president in this country because you can't win an election like that. You can't win an election as an independent candidate. And then if you're a registered independent voter, you don't get to vote in the primaries. So they punish you for not wanting to align yourself with either party.
Yeah. It is crazy to me how polarizing it is here. You're either one or the other. I mean, that's the way it seems. I understand a lot of people swing, but it does seem like, at home, most people would never go, oh, I'm Labor and I'm Liberal. They're our sort of two parties. You wouldn't necessarily just identify or just say like, here people would be like, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican. Like you wouldn't go around home going, I'm a Labor, you wouldn't.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
It's not good banter. It's not fun.
And it's what's crazy to me is here, it's like people have been afraid to even admit openly in New York if they're a Trump guy. Like if they're in public or you see it at Mike's, like if someone's like, all right, we got any Trump supporters here? And I know people that are.
Yeah.
But no one will put their hand up, myself included, because I'm like, I can't be bothered.
Yeah.
You're almost like shamed into silence in a way.
100%. That's what I was thinking about. Everybody when they vote, they always put the sticker on that says I voted. And nowadays, I think the only people that were wearing stickers on election day were people that voted for Kamala. Because if you voted for Trump, you don't want people asking questions. So you're not going to advertise.
Yeah.
You're like, or anybody that's, it's so funny, but it's so true now. If somebody asks you like, oh, what party are you, or who did you vote for president? They'll be like, I don't really talk about politics. It's like, okay, so Trump, you're a Republican.
Ryan, what percentage was it that New York swung red and blue? Because it was like 60-40 in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a lot more than usual. It was a lot more than because usually New York is like very blue. Yeah, I'm from Long Island, which is like the one of the big red spots in New York. But this year was like the closest it's ever been. But that was in most like liberal states. It was a much closer margin. But it was, a lot of people are saying it's less that Trump won, it's more that the Democrats in general just lost.
Yeah.
A lot of times that's how it is. It's like you're picking either the lesser of two evils, or one side is just so bad and you can tell. I mean, if you look at Kamala had 100 days to put a campaign together.
It's like an impossible task.
And she had 100 days to put a campaign together against one of the most influential people of our time, whether you like him or not.
He's
He's
amazing.
super controversial.
Kamala had 55%, which is
that's crazy to me.
55 in Long Island?
in New York.
In New York.
Because
The whole
the
state?
whole state, she only
Holy
won with
shit.
55, which most of the time, I think even Hillary won with 60.
That's
65.
nearly
Yeah.
50%. That's
Yes.
literally
Yeah.
so that's crazy.
And New York City is, how many people live in New York State?
Seven.
Voted in New York State is close to 10 million.
Close to 10 million.
Yeah.
Okay, so how many people
New York
live?
City was blue, but it doesn't show you how much.
Right, but how many people live in the state of New York?
I'm pretty sure Manhattan is 7 million people. I could be wrong.
I think New York City, all the boroughs is 8 million.
Okay, there you go.
And so
It says 19.57 million as of last year.
okay, so that's
I'm well off.
19 million.
State's big.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Gotcha,
19 million people live in the state of New York. 8 million of them live in New York City.
Little island. Yeah.
Little tiny, but that is almost always blue, and that carries over throughout the entire state. Like,
Yeah.
if you go up to, I think Buffalo is blue, but if you go into, dude, I was at a wedding in upstate New York, and I'm driving through, and all I see are these pickup trucks with like bumper stickers that say "fuck Joe and the Ho," and they're spelt out in the letters are AK-47s, and it's like, so upstate is super red.
Yeah.
They're super.
You see the
fucking
flags
red.
out on the front of their houses.
I'm looking at the state right now, and pretty much like upstate, only the main cities were blue.
Okay.
Everything else is red. So like
Everything else,
Syracuse is blue, Albany is blue,
Buffalo.
Buffalo Rochester, blue. Everything else is red.
Right.
It's
right.
crazy though how it's mind-boggling to me how people are so fearful of it going one way or another. Like people actually crying. It's like, get a fucking grip. Nothing's going to change. Like
Yeah.
the only thing that I'm hoping for with Trump, he's saying that he wants to end the wars and Ukraine, and he said he will come up with a solution for ending the war in Israel and Palestine, which to me, he's the only person that said that. And that to me means everything because I'm so anti-war. Like no one at all should be killing anyone these days over anything. It's just ridiculous. We're all humans. We're all people. We're all on the one planet. It just makes no sense. So my hope is that he does do what he says he's going to do. And if he does,
sure.
I think that will be fantastic.
Yeah.
Everything else, I don't think it's going to change any of our lives or any of your lives because you guys are citizens. But
It's this long-standing trope in this country that, you feel like whoever wins the president, things are going to change drastically, and they never do.
No.
They never fucking do.
it would be nice though to see, like, it from an outsider coming in, it's very easy to see where the money's not going.
Yeah.
And all the homeless, all the mental illness, like there's a homeless person sleeping on every freaking street here.
There's a
they're
homeless
on
person
crack.
outside the studio right now, I'm sure.
and
behind a
and
car.
they can send however many billion, 200, 300 billion to Ukraine or whatever it is. I don't know the number.
Yeah. Or spend it all on our own military.
Spend it. Why don't they spend it here? That to me just doesn't make any sense to fight a war that's not even, or fund a war that's not even
Ours to fight.
ours to fight. I mean,
Yeah,
you're not
yeah.
even in Europe. Australia, we're not in Europe. We're an ally. We're not in Europe. It shouldn't. Europeans should fight a European war. You've got to give it to him. He probably is the most influential man of the modern times.
He's the most, well, him or Joe Rogan. But of just like the common man, I think those two. But he's the most controversial, you know, and he's always, it's weird because I think in the 80s and 90s, he was just seen as this kind of like tycoon billionaire who was building hotels and putting up buildings in New York City. And so he was well respected in like real estate and just as a guy that could get shit done. And then in the early 2000s, he became a character on TV for The Apprentice. And then throughout the 2000s, he, for lack of a better term, trumped up his own celebrity. He was on fucking WWE. He did.
He's in the Hall of Fame. He's
in the WWE Hall of Fame.
Trump is.
He's in the Trump WWE Hall of Fame. He had a feud with Vince McMahon that led to a hair versus hair match where the loser got their head shaved.
Battle of the Billionaires.
Yeah, the Battle of the Billionaires, WrestleMania 23. And it ended with Vince McMahon's guy losing and Trump shaving Vince McMahon's head in front of the whole arena of
That's
people.
fun.
Yeah.
And then we made that man the president.
Yeah.
And then he put Vince McMahon's wife in the cabinet.
There you go.
Linda McMahon was a member of the cabinet in 2016.
What a legend. So do you reckon you're going to be here for a while, Joe? What's your plan? What's your long-term plan? Short, long-term?
I want to be in New York for as long as it takes me to figure my life out. And then once I don't want to live here forever. Like I don't really see myself having kids here. You know, there's a lot of bullshit and there's not a lot of space and it's so expensive, you know.
So expensive here.
But I have a girlfriend here. We live together. We have a pretty good apartment. I'm comfortable now, and I'm doing comedy, and it's like, you know, I have a little bubble that I can exist in, and so until I have, you know, better opportunities elsewhere, then I'm gonna be here.
Well, I'm excited for you, man. You're killing it. You're one of the funniest guys I know.
Dude, thank you, man. I appreciate it, Cam.
Amazing.
You're a funny cunt, Cam. You're a funny fucking cunt. And you're a sweet cunt too.
Thank you. It's been great. It really has. So, what have you got coming up? You got any shows? What's your Instagram as well?
Instagram Mojo So Dope. That's MoJoeSoDope. Mojo So Dope.
Hell yeah.
And also Plan B Comedy. I believe it's planb.comedy. That is a production that me and my friend Harrison started. And we're doing shows. We do an open mic every other Tuesday. And you can follow us and we'll give you all the details. As it stands right now, so we've got the open mic on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. Called Avenue Bomb. It's at East Point Bar, which is on Avenue B and 2nd Street. And Harrison and I, Plan B Comedy, have a show on December 5th at the Fear City Comedy Club.
Hell yeah. So you've organized that?
Yes, we got the A-OK from the owner and booker, Jonesy, who's the fucking man. If you are a comic in New York City or if you enjoy comedy, I highly suggest you check out the Fear City Comedy Club. The guy who runs he's so fucking cool. He has the right mindset. You know, I think he's been through the ringer of trying to make a name for yourself, and he's seen all of the pitfalls of comedy, and he's trying to be a positive force in the community, which is so nice when an owner or a booker has your best interest in mind, and it's not just I want what's ever best for my club. You know, he's really, I mean, and me and Harrison have only known him for like 2 weeks, and he's already become like almost a mentor to us.
Wow. Okay.
So I highly suggest it. And then after that, it's just continuing to bomb at open mics and write shitty jokes in my apartment, and test them out and. We'll see. I mean, we picked the life that we all live. It's a long road. It's a long road.
It's a 10-year plan.
Yes. And even after that, like sometimes it's a 15-year plan.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's 20 years. But the cool thing is that you find different avenues for you to to be creative. So, for some people, it takes a little longer to get the confidence on stage or to get the presentation on stage down. But some of them go into writing. Some of them go into creating content for the internet. Some of them get into acting. It's like there's different avenues that we can all take. And I'm open to all of them.
Me too. I mean, that's the point in doing this podcast. And you boys are doing shows, and Harrison and I are going to do a podcast as well. And I'm sure you're going to do your own. And one of us makes it, we all make it. We all bring each other up.
And
that's the best thing about having a group of friends doing the same thing. And I look at the guys that are doing this and they don't have a group of friends and they just hit the mics, but they're
doing it solo. Yeah.
That's tough, man.
Yeah, that is tough. That's a tough life to live. It's like, if you're not, I didn't get into comedy to make friends, but I'm happy that I did. Yes. I'm happy that I made friends because it makes it so much easier. It makes it so much more enjoyable. And it's the thing that, it makes me happy seeing you guys at mics and at shows, and it makes me happy to see you guys doing well, because then it's almost like when you get in with a group of people and they're all doing well, you get this feeling that you're doing something right. And so and to bring up your point about, I think you said that, if everybody's doing well, and so that way it kind of like rubs off on us. Well, I wanted to say like high tides raise all ships. So if we all are doing, our own thing, but we're all doing it together or close to each other, it's gonna bleed over into our other projects and into our other stuff.
Absolutely. I see it, mate. And there's a special spirit in this city, and I see it and I feel it, and that's why I want to stay. Nothing's ridiculous. Like you can meet someone, they're like, I want to be an actor, I want to be a comic, or I want to... No one says boo. No one goes, oh, you can't do that. You can't.
There's enough of those.
Yeah, no one says that here. Everyone's like, good on you. Well done. Good for you. Keep going, And it's like nothing else.
Because a lot of the times the people that are working those 9-to-5s or doing those, those kind of soulless, blood-sucking vocations or whatever, like the people that are doing that stuff. Whenever I tell people that I'm doing comedy, they're like very supportive of it because they go, that's really fucking cool that you're doing something that other people don't want to do 100%. Or don't have, whatever. It's like, it does make you feel like I'm okay living an alternative lifestyle because I feel like I'm doing something that's good for me. But again, like,
Oh, keep going, man. You're killing it. I'm looking forward to seeing your progress. It's awesome. And,
thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Podcast number 1.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to be here and for publicly sucking my dick on the podcast and
hell yeah,
really
man.
Stroking my ego and allowing me to stroke my own ego. It's cool.
Dude, it's very worth stroking.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it, man. And what you'll find is the more you stroke it, the easier it is for me to release.
The quicker I come.
Yes. Especially if a guy does it.
See, I was going to cut out all the stuff you talking about having a giant dick, but now it's just on theme.
It's part of it's part of the bit, Ryan. It's part of the bit. My cock is huge.
All right, boys. Well, thank you very much, Joe. Thank you, Ryan. And that's a wrap. Podcast number 1.
Peace.
Hey, guys. Thanks for listening to this episode of Going After It with Cam Bird. Produced by Ryan Rizzuti and music by the very talented Brian Rigby. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe, and remember to hit that notification bell. Take care, everyone, and if you can, get after it.